Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of In Lay Terms. I'm your host, Peyman Askari, and today we have a special guest with us. It's the one of our newest PPC candidates, Mr. Andre Maloche. Welcome on. Welcome back. Welcome, sir.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Peyman.
Andre, thank you very much for coming on, and I thought we could get things started. Maybe if you could tell us a little about yourself.
Yes, I'm 64 years old. I was born in Montreal, so I'm essentially a Montrealer, but I live in the Northern Laurentian now since 16 years. And I studied electronics at the college, so I have a college degree in electronics and in science. And after that, I started working very early for Hydro-Quebec. So I worked for 33 years for Hydro-Quebec, first of all as a network manager and a power plant operator. So I worked for that. I worked for about 3 years, and after that, I went to I would say high voltage electrical system for Hydro-Quebec. So in transmission line and substation. So I worked in James Bay for a couple of years, and then I became manager there. And I came back to Montreal, 1994, I think, and I started to be manager for a network operator in Montreal. And at the same time, I was managing 36 people with a very big budget. And at the same time, in 1994, 1995, I started a bachelor's degree in French literature at Montreal University. So for 4 years, and then I did a certificate in philosophy at the same time. So uh, I was working at night and studying during the days. It was quite interesting at the time. And when they opened the electricity market, the gross market in Northeast, including Ontario, New Brunswick, New England, and New York, they opened the trading floor at Hydro-Quebec. So I started to be a energy trader. So I was trading electricity short term, gas, and of course future transmission capabilities. So I did that for 3 years, and after that they asked me to be project manager for the trading, the designing of the trading software for Hydro-Quebec for the trading floor. So I did that for three years. We implemented the system, and I started to be advisor of high management for Hydro-Quebec production. And I start to act as a business analyst, so doing business processes, strategic plan, operational plan. So I did this until 2014, and in 2014 I was starting to have a very big issue with management decisions. So I decided to retire and to concentrate on writing. So I'm writing since 30 years. So I write novels, plays, fairy tales, short stories, lots of satirical, I would say, article. I'm quite ironical person. So, and 16 years ago, I bought a very old house, an ancestral house. And with my wife, since 12 years, we try to restore this house. And I think we did well, but it was a very big challenge. It showed me many things that I'm an intellectual, but I'm also very manual, very skillful. So we have a big garden with lots of vegetables. So I mix, I would say, the intellectual part with the manual part. So that's about it. I'm eager to see where I would say life will bring me now. At 64, I retired 10 years ago, but I never had the feeling that I was retiring. I think I was working more hard than I was working at Hydro-Quebec. So it's another life. It's another perspective, I would say.
You're clearly a well-rounded individual with a diverse set of skills. So
Yeah.
that's very impressive.
Yes.
So my first question, let me just adjust my camera a little bit. Apologies to the viewer. So my first question is whether or not you have any political experience. And before I answer, this is my first entry into politics as well, so there's no judgment here.
No, no, I understand, and it's important. We all have to start somewhere anyway. So, but what is it? What is it? What is funny for me is that when I had the interview for the candidacy for the PPC, Nancy Mercier, she asked me about the question, and I told her, I said, I think I was always a political man without knowing it. When I was a manager at Radio Quebec, they were negotiating contract with the public union employees, Canadian Public Union employees. And I remember one of the director of the union, he came to see me and he said, because I intervened, I went to the microphone and I asked some, I would say some tricky question. And he said, you want to be a director as a union director? I said, I'm a manager. I cannot be like that. And I always felt that politics was part of my life. I was looking at it from far, but I was not really involved politically until I would say until 2020, when the city councillor of my city asked me to run in a municipal election. So I said, okay, I will go. I will go. I went to the meeting. I went to 3 meetings, and I was a little bit disappointed because they had a certain view. It was a new party, but also they were trying to focus on very local problems, which are important. I admit it, but at my level, I was saying, okay, I think I will not help them very much. So I told the city councilor, the leader of the party, I said, I will follow you, I will vote for you, but it's not for me. And in 2021, during the COVID crisis, I decided to write 2022, I think, or a little bit after the election when Pierre Poilievre was elected leader of the Conservative Party. I started to write him a letter saying that I want to run for the Conservative Party of Canada. And at the last moment, I decided not to send a letter, and I transformed it into an article. I'm a writer, so I played with it and I put it on my website, and I forgot about it. I told myself, "Oh, it's not me. I was seeing strange things, and I was seeing how people were deceived by politics. And arrived to PPC. So I was like, I feel that it is a duty to do it. It is not because I dream about being politicians. I made fun of politics all the time, but there's a serious side in politics. I think it's part of us. So the experience is not, I would say the political campaign, I'm like you, I don't have experience. But I have experience in, I would say, conceiving or designing strategic plan. I know I did it at Hydro-Quebec. So I have this knowledge. So, but I'm also eager to learn from people who have, I would say, a certain experience. I think about Michael Batter. I watched a couple of the intervention with him, and he has in a few years, he has gathered a very good amount of experience. Maxime Bernier has a lot of experience. He was a foreign minister, foreign affairs minister, minister of economy. So I think it's a good start. And for me, I went through the program of the People's Party, and it's my ideas. So I'm bound with that. So it's interesting. So I'm here to learn too.
That's good. That's a learning process.
Yes.
Andre, you kind of answered this, but I just want to flesh it out a little more. I always ask new candidates, why did you decide to run for the People's Party, which is much harder, and instead of running for the Conservative Party? So the argument would be, if you would run for the Conservative Party, it would be easier to get in. At least you could make some changes. Why did you make that distinction?
But like I said, I write since 30 years. So I wrote 5 major essays. I wrote two essays that are very sarcastic. The first one is, I will say it in English, it is Coward, Traitors, and Collaborators. I just finished it last year. It is 330-page essay. The second one that I just finished 1 week ago, it is Parasite, Pervert, and Psychopath. And the third one that I started to write is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. I started it. Why I say this, it's because I do not take the easy path. I'm not the kind of person who will take the easy path. Sometimes it's not good. Sometimes you have to go to the easy path. It's already prepared for you. And I was looking at the Conservative Party, and the Conservative Party is a mirror of the Liberal Party. It's a mirror. They do not distance themselves with, I would say, globalist politics. And I studied a lot. Maybe we will talk about it later. So for me, it was out. The Conservative Party of Canada was out. And I had this experience with the Conservative Party of Quebec. It was in 2021, and the election was in 2022. And they didn't have a program, they didn't have strategies, they didn't have a vision of what they want to be for Quebec, for example, or for Canada. Where is the vision? And when I was doing strategic plan at Hydro-Quebec, we were always asking ourselves where we will be in 15 years, where we will be in 10 years, where we will be in 5 years. Are those politics are coherent through time? So I don't see any vision, whether it is the Liberal, the Conservative Party, or forget about the NDP. It's something else. But and I can talk about the Bloc Québécois too. But I don't see any vision, and I see that going with People's Party, it's a good way to, first of all, influence other people, being influenced by them, develop a real vision of what could be Canada. Now, maybe not for me, I'm 64, but I have a daughter and a granddaughter, so I'm thinking about them, thinking about their future. And so I prefer to choose a party that not it is because it is new, it's because I feel there's a core ideas there. They are people who are, it's not only passionate, people who are intelligent. They want to change what is happening now, and they want to do it in a different way. So I would prefer to choose like I said, I decided to go into it and try it. It would have been much more easy. Forget about the Liberals. It cannot fit with me. But the Conservative Party, I was always looking at it. And because I'm from Quebec, I voted one time for the Bloc Québécois. It was in 2011 when Jack Layton, there was the orange wave in Quebec. And it was quite funny because I said, why do I vote for the Bloc Québécois? I don't believe in that. So that's the reason. I want to go with a party that will shake the temple, that will move ideas. Of course, maybe we will not win and we will not be elected. And I know this. And I'm used to, when you're used to lose, you start to be more strong. So that would be my answer.
You bring up a good point. You're in Quebec. What, in following up with that question, why not the Bloc? Why the PPC over the Bloc?
Oh, the Bloc. In 2000, what the last election was? What in Ottawa? It was 2021, and I wrote a text about the Liberals, the Conservative, the NDP, and the Bloc. And the Bloc, I called them the Bloc Cholera. For me, they're communist. They don't know. I'm very sarcastic, but I don't like. They just go for the pension. Let's be honest. What did the Bloc achieve in the last what? They were elected in 1994, I think, with Gilles Duceppe and Lucien Bouchard, who after became Prime Minister of Quebec for the referendum. What did they achieve in 30 years? Nothing. They opposed, they vote with the government. We saw what they did with the carbon tax, and I follow some of them. Some are intelligent. There was a journalist in Journal de Montréal. I disconnect from mainstream media since 30 years. I don't have TV. But I was following one journalist of the Journal de Montréal. He seemed quite elaborate, and he had very good ideas. And then he went for the block. And I had a couple of exchange on Higgs with him. We're talking about Anna Arendt, great Jewish philosopher. And I know Anna Arendt. He was like, I said, it's not the same man I saw when he was a journalist. I think, and he was elected for the bloc. So the answer for me is the bloc is, it's not splitting the vote. It's creating confusion in the head of people. And they are very good at it. Now you know that the leader of the bloc blocks everybody on X. It's quite ironical.
Yes, I was going to say it's fitting.
You will not get a lot of votes if you start to block everybody because they disagree with your ideas. So no, the block. I thought about it many years ago, but maybe I was not ready for politics. You have to be ready for it too. It's I think it's like writing. You don't start to write. Writing chooses you. So I have the feeling that politics chose me, and I was asking myself, oh, the PPC, will they take a person like me? And I see I'm happy because it is an extraordinary opportunity to meet great people with great ideas, even if we disagree. This is not the issue. The issue is to be able to debate. And since many years, I don't see debates in the parliament. I see a circus. And I would like to restore this level of respect, self-respect, and respect for others. So I would not choose the bloc. But the bloc will be a problem in Quebec in the next election. The bloc will, and the bloc, they voted with the NDP and the Liberal and against the Conservatives. So the bloc are not there to they always say we promote the interest of Quebec. Oh, we want to make sovereignty. What did they do? They didn't do nothing. What did they do for the country in the last 30 years? Nothing. So for me, the bloc is out.
I want to pick up on one thing you said. You called I think you were talking about the parliament. You called it a circus, like nobody debates anymore. You and I talked about this before. Like the parliament, it's good to have a procedure, but when that procedure bogs down the purpose of the original purpose of the parliament, it's no longer necessary. Can you speak to that?
Yes, of course. Like I told you, I was an advisor for high management of Hydro-Quebec. I was not a clown. I was following the protocol, but I can say that I was animating meetings with vice president. You know, vice president, they have a very big ego. And I was acting like an animator, and sometimes I was provoking them so they could react outside of the protocol. But most of the time, you need this protocol. You need this respect for the institution. Anna Arendt, she talks about the freedom of people. The freedom of people is guaranteed by strong institution. If you mock the institution, and we saw it with the Olympic Games, if we mock the institution, we do not respect them, and we treat our own freedom. So I think protocol is important. You know it. You do podcast. We have to follow a certain protocol. I think it's very important. It doesn't mean that we always have to be serious. Sometimes it's fun to use irony but I see also one bad tendency with social media is people, they are dehinhibited. They do not control themselves. It's very easy on X or on Facebook. I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on Instagram. The only one is that I use is X and Telegram. But and even I sometimes I'm subject to that. We self-control. So institution is important. I think that's the basic of our democracy. Strong institution that respect civil liberty. I would say the possibility of people to do business, create families. Maybe we'll talk about this later. So protocol is very important.
All right. So I want to ease in, I want to transition towards policy platform issues. When I was doing my interview for candidacy, they asked me about the PPC platform. They said, which parts of the platform do you agree with? Which maybe you disagree with? So let's start with that, Andre. What parts of the platform are you most excited about?
Well, I would say the platform in itself is very well done. I read everything, and for the interview, I prepared myself, and I was looking at all the points, all the ideas of the platform, and I was trying to find a place where I disagree. It was not easy to find because no, I admit it. Climate change, immigration, uh, transgenderism. I wrote that in my essay. The I would say the push of the Global Economic Forum, the COVID crisis. I would say firearms. I learned things about, I would say, firearms in Canada, or the native condition in Canada. So I learned a lot of things, and I would say what I like the most, and I think we have to go with a list of priority. What's the most biggest problem now? Economy, immigration. We are sinking, literally sinking, and people cannot afford houses. I think about farmers. I could talk about real estate. I know a lot about it. I follow the market of real estate since 30 years. So I'm very aware of what is happening now in this country. So for me, $1.3 trillion of debt, $400 billion of deficit for 1 year in 2020 was incredible. You pay people so they will not work. How do you call this? Socialism. Now, my wife is Russian. She's Soviet Union woman. She recognized the pattern that she lived for 25 years. And I see it here. So for me, restoring, I would say, the sovereignty of the country, the control of immigration. It's not immigration anymore. It's not immigration. In the 1915, 1920s, in Canada, we were having immigration, and we were talking about assimilation. You say people arrive, they adopt Canadian values. Then in the 40s and 50s, we stopped to talk about integration. They integrate, but they keep their values. Okay, I agree with that. Somebody arrives here and he has values from outside. He wants to keep it. His family is from another country. I understand that. Now we're not talking about that. We're talking about multiculturalism. So everybody keeps their I would say, their culture, but they do not adapt what is the core value of Canada. So it drifts over a period of maybe 75, 80 years. And now we are in the situation now. What I lack to see in the People's Party of Canada is a vision where we want to be. Look at the Agenda 2030 of the United Nations. They have 30 goals to achieve, and they work according to that. Whether we agree on that or not, it's not a question. Where is the vision? Where will be the vision of Canada for the People's Party? And this is where I would like to contribute to help. Not necessarily, I don't bring solution, I bring thinking. We have to think together in team. It's important. We have to exchange, debate, disagree. We have to disagree on certain politics. Yesterday, I watched one of your space, and there was a little fight about statistics in the last election, and I was laughing because I was saying, okay, maybe it's not the time to do this. If you do a postmortem after the election, try to analyze why you didn't do so well, or try to see what were the good action that you did. So this, I think, I am ready to help, I would say, the party to structure that. So that's maybe what I would say that I don't see now. But for the rest, it's like they copied my ideas.
So
No,
go ahead.
no, I really mean it, because I'm a very sarcastic person toward politics and toward political party, and In the last 3, 4 months, I changed a lot. When I met Maxime Bernier in April, it was in Laurentian in Val David, and I told my wife, I have to go and see him. So we went there. There was a conversation, 3 hours, and I asked a couple of questions about economy, about energy, and the impression was, oh, okay, that's a very good lead. Then it's a new party. How do we structure that? And we have to, I would say, temper our expectation. We will not form the government. Huh? I'm pretty sure of that. But we can maybe change mentalities, maybe to prepare your young man, maybe in 5 years, maybe you'll be elected, but it's important to prepare that. And I would like to bring my experience to, so it can contribute to help the party first.
No, it's really it's very valuable what you're doing, and I put it under the umbrella of patriotism. You know, you're giving back to your country that for decades these institutions gave to you.
Exactly. I think it's the right word. I always said to my wife, I said I was fortunate enough. My path was not easy, but it helps to create you, and patriotism. The word is important. Pater, it's the father, it's the image, the protector. So for me, yes, I have to give back. For all Canadians, I hope.
So, Andre, you answered one of my questions. You know, what are the root causes of immigration? And I don't want to go into too much detail, but roughly you said it's assimilation, and then we went to integration, and then now we have multiculturalism. So that's
Exactly.
good. Well,
Exactly.
our economy, what do you think is the root cause of the debt and deficit?
But the debt, like me, that the deficit are incredible. And when I talk about socialism, I see the government. During COVID, they forbid people to open their restaurant, their small business, and it was horrible. You forbid people to earn a living, and they broke the constitution. They broke the constitution many times. So they force people into a way where they would be dependent on the state. And you see the immigrants. Now, there's a lot of immigrants who are now hired by the federal government. You go on the website of the federal government and they hire people, and they hire people a lot. So the bureaucracy is starting to be so heavy that the budget are collapsing. That's one aspect. The other aspect is, why so many immigrants? Where is the demography in Canada? Who makes babies? Do we have I would say, replacement ratio 2.2, 2.5 children per family? We don't have that. So they pretend that by immigration, we have a lack of labor. No, they keep wages down so they can import, cheap immigration. You're not importing or you're not permitting very high skilled people here. Most of them. There are some very good people who arrive here, but they have to integrate, or they have at least to know the code, the values that we have here. And sometimes I look at people and they don't know how to behave. Not necessarily socially, but they don't know how the system works. They don't know their language. So they arrive here, and Canada is not the only country that suffers that. It's globally. It's globally. Mass immigration is everywhere. So there's a plan behind. There's an agenda. We have to expose this and say to people why they're all coming here. Is it paradise? My wife is an immigrant. She's Russian, Soviet Union woman. She arrived in 2013. I sponsored her for 1 year and a half. I paid everything. She arrived here. She had French, of course, because it's in Quebec, and she speaks very well English. She could not find work, and she didn't want to work. I was retiring. But anyway, she arrived with a certain set of values, but she agreed that the values of Canada, now she's Canadian citizen. She agrees with those values. But now what do we see? It's not what is happening. So for me, I think immigration is an issue, and it's not about individual. That's very important. It's not about individual. It's about how those people can integrate. And especially when we look at the country, it's a big country, Canada, 5,000 kilometer long, but the infrastructure are not there. They develop and they do not take care of the actual or existing infrastructure, and they're collapsing. You look at Montreal; it's not possible. Montreal is not possible. I will not talk. I would be curious to hear your views about, because we are in the center. You're in Vancouver, and now I'm starting to follow you, and I'm starting to see people in Alberta, in Prince Edward Island, and I'm curious to see how it is happening. We saw what is happening in Vancouver with the decriminalization of marijuana, and after that, it was what? It was fentanyl, and this is, what is it? What is happening? You want to drug your people so you can control them? So I think it's important that we identify the problem and expose them, or at least explain them to people. Many people, they do not want to see the problems because they are not, they're terrifying. They're terrifying problems. So I think it's important that maybe one of our job will be to explain this calmly, try to explain where those policies come from and are they good for Canada. I think it's important. But what do you think about, which is, you are in Vancouver, and I follow you since one or 2 weeks, and every night I go, I hear something. Yesterday night, there was somebody who was talking about Native communities, and I was shocked with what he said, but I recognized patterns. In last spring, I went to Oka in Quebec. It is Native community. You could have seen, I said, I'm in a third world country. It's a reserve, it's a native reserve. And I was like, where am I? And I was so sad to watch that. I said, what is happening here? And in Hydro-Quebec, we had a policy. I remember there are 18 native community in Quebec. And I knew them all because I was working in James Bay. So I had contact with native people. I saw how they were struggling, and I would say this big, misunderstanding with history. So I think we have to give also, let's say, good historians. We have to give them the time to explain what happened. We saw in Kamloops what happened. They publicize a very big scandal, and after that they could not find nothing. Where do we see this in mainstream media? We don't see that. So there's so many issues in Canada. We don't have to go to look somewhere to find problems. We have a lot of problems here. So let's start in our own house.
Yeah, start solving locally.
Locally, yes, of course. Of course.
Andre, I'm going to move to a third question. So the first one was immigration, and then the economy we touched. And I promise you, there will be a test at the end of these three questions. I want you to tie them up. The third, yeah, I'm sure you'll pass with flying colors. But the third one is housing. What do you, in your mind, what's going on with the high price of housing?
Okay, I was telling you earlier that I watched the real estate market since 25 years. I moved 13 times in 25 years. I bought 4 houses, a condo. Now I bought an old house. And last year we wanted to sell the house because we wanted to buy a bigger land. And I started to look at housing. You know, the market during COVID was completely crazy. Houses that were paid 300,000 were sold 700,000 in a village. How can you have this kind of speculation? There are two phenomena. The first phenomenon is immigration. You flood people with you flood the country with people. They buy Chinese people. They buy on mobile phone. I had a real estate agent who told me, he says, they buy on mobile phone. We do a video inside, and they say, yes, we buy it. 2 years ago, I think it is the government who passed a law to forbid foreign investment. That's the first thing. There's another thing is speculation. When you look at the number of houses that are for sale and that are empty, you ask yourself, how come they are empty? And I would say, I will touch the agriculture side too. There's a very high speculation on agriculture land. And this creates a very big pressure for, I would say, the middle class. The middle class, the young people who are 25, they cannot buy a house, even with two income. Who can afford a house? I live in Sainte-Sophie, north of Montreal. There's a house here that was sold $900,000. 4 years before, it was for sale for $450,000. How can a Quebec person or a Canadian can buy a house 900,000? So it was only speculation. So there's a lot of speculation on the market. The real estate agent benefited a lot during COVID. It was incredible. Overbidding, it was like the norm. Everybody was overbidding. You could put your house on the market. One day it is sold. You have 20 buyers. And the pressure on immigration of immigration is incredible. We do not develop, it's not a question of developing, I would say, residential construction or I would say social apartment. No, the problem is more fundamental. I think we have to, first of all, we have to stop immigration. That's the first thing. We cannot even integrate the people who arrive here. It's not possible. So the pressure is incredible. Now you see, we have this concept. I don't know if you have this in the rest of Canada, but intergeneration. They build houses, and the parents, they live with the children, they start a family. So now they cannot achieve nothing. There's nothing on the market. Last year, I was looking around, when we were looking to sell the house, I was looking around Ontario, and I was even considering go to Alberta. And I was looking in their area with a bracket of, let's say, 400,000 to 700,000 houses with 2 acres of land. Last year, there was 4,500 houses for sale. This year, there are 400, 10 times less on the market. So it's fascinating how they are concentrating. I would say the market is shrinking. Yeah, so it's normal that people, they cannot achieve a $2,000 rent for an apartment in a village. They cannot. You need a good income to do that. And I would understand Toronto is very expensive. Vancouver is very expensive. Montreal was not that bad, but now it's you want to have an apartment under $2,500. Forget about it. You will not find it. So, do I have a solution? I think we have to. I think we have to organize the policies. So we have to just say, cut the immigration, stop it completely, and then there's a big thinking about what we have to do, and toward housing, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. I told my wife, if we sell the house. My house now is evaluated at $1.3 million. If I sell it, what do I buy? You don't gain or lose by selling. You just change the problem. I think, if I'm not wrong, 35% of the GDP of Canada is based on service, and service is real estate. People, they change houses, but they don't build. We do not. So we have to restart the industry in Canada. It's extremely important. And I think Maxime Bernier is very aware of that because he was Minister of, I think, Commerce after he was Minister of Foreign Affairs. So we have to restart the industry. Last year, how many bankruptcies in Canada? 60,000. They were practically all concentrated in Quebec. It was like, what is happening? When you destroy the small and middle business, you destroy the core of a society. It's not the multinational that creates wealth. It's the small and middle business. It's those people who get up every day. And I would say I want to honor the farmer, how they work hard to feed us. And it's practically it's a vocation. They start and they don't stop. So housing problem, we have to address it like that. We have to take the bull by the horn and then flip it, because it will not go away. The problem will not, it will just increase. And what you will end up with, higher criminality, dysfunction in institute. We see it now. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. So housing, unless we want to be a socialist country. My wife, she comes from Soviet Union. They could not achieve private property. The core of a democracy is private property. Anna Arendt, in one of her books, she talks about that. It's important. You have a roof, you can think you're secure. You start with private property, private entrepreneurship. So it's extremely important to focus on that. And if the government starts to target that, Justin Trudeau was talking about the square meter that you should have. He's talking like a communist. They were talking like this in 1960 in Soviet Union. He's just recycling the same strategy. Do we want that? Me, I know I don't want that. And I will fight against it.
So the final question I have to tie those three together, to what extent is housing and immigration just a symptom of our failed economy? And I'll give you two examples. Since 2001, we've kept the interest rates artificially low, which has caused a housing bubble. Since 2015, just before Trudeau came in, but after him, the government just started running, like we moved from a mixed economy to a government-run economy, and we destroyed industry. And are they bringing in immigration just to prop up the fact that we don't have an economy anymore?
Of course, I think you're right. You see, you talk about the housing bubble. The crisis of 2007 was incredible. It was a disaster, but we never acknowledged the problem. We flood the bank with money, and we kept the interest rate at zero. What is an interest rate? An interest rate is a prime of risk. You will lend money to somebody with an interest rate if you because you have to take a risk. You take a risk, so you say to the borrower, okay, I will lend you money, but let's share the risk. If you don't pay me back, at least you pay me interest. And so they kept it to zero since what, 2000 and until practically last year. People, they are not rewarded for working. They were rewarded for speculating. Financialization of the economy, that's what happened. So we had that policy for practically 20 years. And the speculation was incredible. We saw what happened with Enron. I was there. We were trading with Enron in 2000 when it collapsed. We had position of millions of dollars at Hydro-Quebec that disappeared in one night. And I can imagine all those people who had their pension plan with Enron. It was a tragedy. And they kept it for 20 years. They destroyed the structure of the economy. They changed the policy from an industrial economy in Canada, which was quite great. You had a very good industrial economy in Canada, and they started to financiarize the economy of service. I say economy of service, economy of servant. It's quite close. So, and I wrote that in one of my essays. So the question is not raising the interest rate. The question is who's taking the risk. Now I see that it's mainly Canadian, I would say, who were here that took the risk, and they pay for this risk. So I have the feeling that we will have to maybe question the mandate of the Bank of Canada. how they manage. They talk about inflation, but let's be ridiculous. They don't control inflation at all. So we have to think about what would be a way to support our economy. Maxime Bernier is talking about the gold standard. You have to back your economy with real assets. If you don't, it's an illusion. And one day, like you said, the bubble explodes. And there's always winners and losers. And I see now that there's a lot of losers, that a lot of people who can, the young generation, they cannot buy a house with two income. It's not and I suppose in Vancouver it's even worse from what I see, the perspective I see. Is it that bad in Vancouver?
Rule of thumb in Canada, everything is worse in BC.
Yes.
Andre, what about the second part of the question since 2015? Are they bringing in immigrants because they're Marxist and they love multiculturalism, or is it because they're bringing in spending money here?
But I think they're destroying the country. I think they're destroying the country deliberately. They're destroying the root core of, I would say, root core of capitalism, free entrepreneurship. They're destroying it. We can see it with the number of immigrants they hire at the federal government. When the government starts to control the economy, he starts to control everything. He controls your life. He controls what you can see, what you can buy, what you have to think. So they're doing it, and I'm sorry, my wife is an immigrant, but she's a very educated immigrant. She has a master in business administration and finance. She was a financial director in Russia. So when she arrived, she said, "What is it?" She thought Canada was a paradise. She said, "It is a third world country or what?" And I said, I was a little bit upset because we were comparing system, and I was saying she's well-educated woman. She speaks three languages, and she adapted very, very well. But there's a lot of people who arrive here, and they don't adapt. They just don't adapt, and it's more easy to control them. Do you think that if they receive a visa or a permanent resident card or their citizenship, that they will vote against the person who helped them receive it? They will be loyal. I have friends, Lebanese friends, French friends, Ukrainian, Russian, Georgian. Many of them, even after 20 years that they are here, they still don't talk about politics, and they will vote either liberal or conservative. Why? Because they are not, they could not understand the core value of Canada, even after 20 years of living here. And they are Canadian, but it's quite fascinating. I think it is deliberate. And we have to mention the World Economic Forum and all those international institutions that pressures Canada, Canada is not a small country, but it's not a big country like United States or like Russia or like China. Canada is an ally of the United States, but it is what, 40 million people, 41 million now. It's still not a very big country. Imagine with the policy they want to implement, what I read, is they want to have 100 million people. Oh, we can welcome 100 million people in the territory of Canada. But first of all, do we have the infrastructure? And do we have values to support them? From what I see now, we don't have that. And we're losing it very, very, very fast. So my feeling is that we have to flip the tide. We have to completely. And I think the conservative will not be ready to do that. And if the conservative are elected, and they will be elected, it will just be worse. It will go worse. Maybe we have to hit the bottom before we can come up. I don't have any solution for that, but we have to exchange ideas toward that.
All right, Arnold, in finishing up this episode, at the beginning, you mentioned the importance of a vision. So when you have a company, you have to have a vision, 20 years, 10 years, 5 years. You mentioned how the Conservative Party, and I agree with you, they don't really have a vision, or if they do have one, they don't express it well. What, in
Exactly.
your mind, what do you think the PPC vision should be, or what is the PPC's vision for Canada as you see it?
Well, it was funny because one of my friends is Lebanese, and one day he was shocked when I was talking about the Lebanese constitution. And he said, you know the Lebanese constitution? I said, I'm a writer. First of all, I'm a reader. So what do? You read. I went to download the text and I read all the constitution. I know all the components of the constitution. And I read the Constitution of Canada. Free circulation, the right to create a family, the right to have a business, the right to have private property. The vision of Canada for me is to, I would say, re-implement the spirit of the Constitution, like it was written in 1867. What were the values, the core values? We don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's all there, but we do not respect it. The Trudeau government with the Emergency Act, he broke the Constitution many times, and it's always coming back, always coming back. They're never accountable for nothing. So for me, the vision is very simple. If we can have, if we can re-implement our Constitution, actual Constitution, and reinforce the values in it, I think we will achieve a lot. But this will not happen in 2 to 5 years. We have to target, let's say, 2050. I will be maybe still alive and then elderly, and maybe I will be very happy. The idea is to be able to our institution are sick. First of all, we have to heal them. Then after that, we have to apply the Constitution and respect it. So I think politicians, they have a lot of work to do. They have a lot of, I would say, self-thinking to do. Many of them are good people. Many of them are, I would say, they follow orders. I understand that, the line of the party, we say. But I think the vision is very important, to re-implement the Constitution and explain what we expect from, for example, immigrants. What do they believe in? Do they believe in our value? We think about there are two aspects, or maybe three. I think about the system of justice. Canada is based on the Code Civil du Québec. The rest of Canada is common law. And you have Muslim people who arrive and they start to promote Sharia. Which system you want? You cannot have three systems. You can take the best of each system and try to merge it in something. Eugene Michael Jones was a famous writer, philosopher. He talks about the melting pot. America, United States is a melting pot. They all arrive, they come from East Europe, they come from anywhere, they arrive with their culture, and they go through a big tunnel, and after that, when they go out, they're all dressed the same, and they're all Americans. I say Canada, we have to, again, it's difficult with Canada because Canada is so, it is not multicultural. You have so many histories in Canada. I'm discovering it now, and I'm shocked to know that I'm 64 and I'm still an ignorant about the history of my home country. So if we can focus on that, and after that, for people who want to come here, we say, you see, those are our values. This is our history. You have to honor this. The past will guarantee the future. So I think the vision would be to re-implement the Constitution. Only that will be a very great task.
That's a fantastic, phenomenal answer. Thank you, Andre. Andre, to wrap things up, can you let the audience know where can they learn more about you? Maybe a website or a social media handle?
Yes, I have a web. Of course, I am on Twitter, X. It's at Le Poète Russe. Russian because my wife is Russian. And I have a website where I publish all my articles, my essays, my novels, and it's on WordPress, andremeloge.com. And they can see that I'm, I would say, a very sarcastic person. But there's one aspect that I always say, it's always better to start to laugh at yourself. If you can laugh at yourself, you can laugh at life. So on X and on WordPress. Unfortunately, practically all the my work is in French. But I did some articles, especially during the COVID time. I was very angry about Trudeau and about the mandate and everything. So I wrote some text in English. I hope my English is not too bad, but those two websites, and of course, I try to follow the PPC now because I will, if I'm a candidate, I will probably be on the platform too, so they can follow me there. I'm quite active. I will try now maybe to focus more on the political aspects. How you build a good political team. This maybe I will need a lot of help.
Andre, get those. We'll, in the description, we'll put out your X handle, and if you give us your website, we'll put a link to that as well. This was a phenomenal episode. I had a great time interviewing you, and I hope to see more of you in the future. Thank you very much, and I'll hold you over until after the episode, sir.
No problem. It was a pleasure to be with you, and God bless all.
Thank you.